It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And this week we're blocking all the Ant-Man keywords. Get them out of your feeds, wherever you are. You don't want anything else from this day, Sunday, Monday, whatever day you're listening to this forward, because you are going to get spoiled.
Yeah, difficult for those people that are just into ants in general. You know, those ant influencers. Like, ooh, hope you don't like ants and Ant-Man. You're going to have a hard time.
Yeah, exactly. If you like wasps, even, right? Like, you know,
I never even thought about, like, is people that are really into, like, spiders in general, like, on social media, do they just get tons of Spider-Man content? And they're just like, come on, I hate comic book movies. I'm just about the spiders.
One out of every 8 is just a Spider-Man. Like, damn it, they got me again. Star Wars uses the Force for more visions. This was the worst play on words I had. I looked at this 3 times and I said, yeah, we're just going to go with it because that's what it's going to be. Really what you're all here for, the DC universe is finally revealed to us in phase 1 in all of its glory, right? Not the full 10 years, but we're going to take a look at this, talk it over, the repercussions and more.
Yeah, good luck to everyone out there who lives in the United States and out on, like, the East Coast and even, like, Texas, I heard. There's, like, ice out there. On top of all that, there was a Chinese spy balloon floating over our country. So I sometimes think it would just be, like, wild to look at the United States from an outside perspective. I know we got a couple listeners outside of the country. So I always try to think of listening to the podcast through your lens, and it's just like, oh, yeah, there's, like, a Chinese spy balloon floating over the United States right now, and everyone's freaking out. And at least me on the inside of the country, I just thought it was fun and entertaining.
Well,
I just didn't care about the implications of, like, the geopolitical stuff. I was just like, oh, this is fun. There's a balloon, and we're talking about shooting it down. It felt like early internet, you know.
Well, here's my take on it. While I do think hyperbole is fun and exciting, if it was really a Chinese spy balloon, I don't think it would have been that. It would have taken them like 3 days to take it out of the air, and like I don't think we as people would have known about this. So I do enjoy a little hyperbole. It's really fun. We were talking about, you played Pokemon Go. The Team Rocket balloons are what I'm worried about. Is it Team Rocket up there? It could be. They have a Meowth and everything. So it's just one of those deals. But
yeah, and it was, I think the best part about it all is, like, this was, like, it was a big balloon. I'm not saying this was like a Mylar party store balloon, right? It was big. So it's just like, oh, we want to shoot it down. I just never assumed that they were going to use, like, a freaking fighter jet and shoot a missile at it, which was hilarious. It seems like an efficient way to do it, right? You got fighter jets, you got missiles, you might as well bring them out of the garage. But I just kept thinking, like, do they just bring somebody out there with, like, a helicopter and maybe they just poke it with a stick? That would have been just as funny.
No, they got Wile E. Coyote. He's got his goggles on. He's got his big needle. He's gonna poke it and it's gonna blow him away the other direction.
Yeah, I just love that, like, also in, like, the modern day of militarization, like, I haven't seen Top Gun Maverick yet, so I don't know if they kind of roll out, like, a new scenario in which we need fighter jets, but I feel like you don't often hear about fighter jets actually getting, like, used in the news. Like, there's no such thing as, like, really dogfights anymore, I feel like. It's more like, oh, let's fly our fighter jets nearby this country to make them nervous. So it's like some fighter pilot woke up this morning, honey, I finally get to fire a missile today. Oh, what are you going to do? I'm shooting a balloon.
I don't think it's that. I think they probably, all of them got in there. They all drew straws.
Oh my god!
The short straw gets to do it. They're all very excited about this.
Or is it like an embarrassing thing to do? It's just like, oh, give it to the rookie. We don't wake up for balloons. We wake up for, like, real enemies.
So I will tell you, having seen Top Gun Maverick, it is very much a lot like the part of Star Wars: A New Hope where they're doing the trench run, right? Take that part of the movie only, and that's all of, like, Top Gun Maverick, and it's fantastic. It's actually really fun to do that. So
yeah, I've heard good things about Top Gun Maverick. Still haven't watched it yet, but I do feel like in Hollywood they always have to find ways to justify the fighter jet in modern age. Because like back in the 80s, it was like, oh hell yeah, everything's fighter jets. We haven't invented the drone yet, so you actually had to put people in airplanes.
And I think you make a great point, and Maverick does a good job explaining why they can't use drones in that situation. So yeah, absolutely, I think it's great. Let's. I was trying to kick you off to Harrison Ford because you've been watching Harrison Ford, who is making a resurgence in TV shows now, right? Movies. He's doing, Indiana Jones. He's going to be joining the MCU. He's got a show on Apple TV, right? Like, what's up with this?
He's also in one of those like Yellowstone spinoffs. With Dame Helen Mirren. Is that what, or is it Dame Judi Dench? Is what you call it? I don't know. I get them confused.
Yeah. It's with Helen Mirren, so you at least got that part right. So whether she's recognized or not, I could not tell you. But I think that's more of a documentary of just Harrison Ford on a regular basis, right? Maybe he wanted to fly up there and take the balloon out. I know he's an avid
oh my
flyer.
Gosh, that would be awesome. Let's tap our celebrities to shoot down spy balloons.
That's right, for that. But yes, I was kicking you off for a Harrison Ford thing to talk about his show on Apple TV. You've been watching here this week.
Yeah, brand new show on Apple TV called Shrinking. Starring Jason Segel, who you might know from How I Met Your Mother or Forgetting Sarah Marshall, alongside of Harrison Ford. And I really went into the show not knowing anything. I know it was from the creative team who makes Ted Lasso. So it was nice to see that Apple now has like another kind of like feel-good show in its roster, right? After the end of every episode of like Ted Lasso, you're usually like feeling uplifted in some way, and Shrinking kind of has that same like chemical DNA in the show. It's about three therapists that kind of like run a practice and just them going through their own shit in their own lives and helping other people, and it's just funny, it's uplifting, and Harrison Ford of course is playing like a gravelly like old just like rah, 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 type of guy, and then his coworkers are always trying to like get into his life and cheer him up and support him and everything. So it's great. The show really focuses more on Jason Segel, but kind of as you progress through the episodes, there's only 3 out right now, you start to learn more about the other characters in the show. So I'd give it a shot. Shrinking. It's just a good, feel-good show. I love Jason Segel too. It's been a while since I've really kind of seen him in anything outside of How I Met Your Mother and Forgetting Sarah Marshall. He dots other movies occasionally, and I think he had like a series, like more of like a premium series on like Amazon Prime or like an AMC Plus or something, but I never saw it. I was never exposed to it. So it's just nice seeing Jason Segel again. But that's something Chris hasn't seen yet, Shrinking. And another thing Chris hasn't seen yet is episode 3 of The Last of Us. I was shocked to learn just mere moments ago Chris has not watched this episode yet, and I believe him. I believe his excuses that he's been busy and not be able to watch it yet. It is a bit of a longer episode that you need to build a little bit more time for.
As I told Mike, this is a 90-minute episode, and I want to give the show my full attention. It deserves a full attention, and to the care and the greatness into this. So I'm very much trying to find 90 minutes in my day where I can sit down and watch this. Now, my wife is watching it with me, so I can't watch it by myself. So it's one of those things like we have to find some time between when she goes to bed and I get home to do this. And we only have like literally, I think maybe 3 hours, but in that window, to make dinner and decompress and all that stuff. So
and plus there's another episode of The Last of Us tonight.
Episode 4.
So
now, they do get shorter. The next couple episodes are like under an hour or like 50 minutes and then like 60 minutes. So I'm like, okay, I will be watching this. My goal was to watch it today. We are recording a little earlier than usual, but next week it will probably be in the middle of the week because next week is the Super Bowl, obviously. But my goal is to watch it.
It just felt weird recording today's episode just without bringing it up at all, because I gave Chris like a PSA a moment ago, and I feel like I could give it to any listeners out there who haven't quite watched episode 3 yet, of like, it was great watching it. Obviously, it's a great episode, and the internet all agrees, and we've all been talking about it on the internet for like the past week, but I almost felt like it's like artificially inflated the hype of the episode, which is like, the episode's great, solid like 10 out of 10, like great hour and a half of television, but I almost like am worried for Chris. Now that it's been like so hyped up, he'll watch it and be like, wait a minute, this was it? but it's still good. So it's almost like lower your expectations just a tad. It's still great. Obviously, no complaints, but like that's what the internet can do sometimes, right? The internet is a hyperbolic machine that will take anything that's great and try to turn it into like god tier level thing,
like a balloon floating over the United States. Is
yes,
now a Chinese
exactly.
spy balloon. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly, when that kind of stuff doesn't exist. So that's sometimes can be like the unintended consequences of the internet hype machine, right? Is like sometimes things can get just like way overblown, pun intended, if we're talking about a balloon. So, but Chris, you were right though. A couple weeks ago, you were just like, yeah, we probably won't be talking about The Last of Us every single week, but we'll chime in.
Yeah.
You know, when things start to get intense, and I think at the end of the season, of course, we'll do like a wrap up.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not. I'm not falling off the wagon. I'm not disinterested. It is literally just an hour and a half episode. On the third episode, I'm like, oh god, like I want to make sure. Again, when I watch something, I try to put the phone down. I'm not playing games. I'm not distracted. All the lights are, they're not. My computer's not over here blinking and dinging with notifications. So I'm trying to give it the due respect it deserves, and it's just hard to find an hour and a half on a week for this, because again, we don't have this really in our notes, but the Super Bowl is next weekend, right? Next Sunday, and my wife and I are hosting a Super Bowl party locally here. So we did not know this until literally during this week. So we are scrambling to prep our home and make sure we get all this stuff, because you don't want to be next Saturday buying your Super Bowl snack foods, right? Like that is the worst thing to do.
Your snack aisle is going to be decimated.
Yeah. So we're trying to, like, we've already made one grocery run today. We might have to make another one later tonight, or like a one on a Monday evening to make sure we have everything. So we're working through that. But yeah, absolutely, my goal is to watch it. And I've seen again, I've maintained spoiler free on this episode, so I'm excited to watch it and see what it is. But yes, and then you've actually maintained your Netflix subscription for a while here, which is something else we'll talk about in a little bit. And you were watching another new show on there. Is it a show or a movie? I thought it was a movie.
It's a movie called You People on Netflix. It's directed by Kenya Barris and written by him as well, along with Jonah Hill, who stars in it. So this one was pretty funny. We weren't anticipating to really enjoy it as much as we did. We just kind of like threw it on up on the TV when we were doing other stuff. But it's just about Jonah Hill, who is portrayed as Jewish in this film, and I think he is in real life, but it's part of his character in the movie, as he falls in love and gets engaged with a black woman. So it's all about the differences of like culture clash and trying to come together, which is not necessarily a movie that's never been made before, but it was a pleasant surprise to see Eddie Murphy in it. He plays the father of the bride.
I've seen some clips of this, right? And I think one of them, like, I believe he's in a barber shop, and he's like, you guys, he's like, yo, you guys don't do weird things here, right? In the barber shop. And he's like, what do you mean? So yeah, it looks funny from the clips I've seen, but I didn't know Eddie Murphy was. I've seen all the Jonah Hill stuff, right? As a, I guess, a love. It's more like a romantic comedy movie.
Yeah, it's a rom-com for sure. But just like I said earlier, with Jason Segel, the same goes for Eddie Murphy in a way of like Eddie Murphy has also still been out there in Hollywood, making movies and TV shows, but I just haven't gotten around to watching them. I know Dolomite is supposed to be great, and that's also on Netflix, and I haven't gotten around to it yet. But so it was just great to watch Eddie Murphy again. It's like two actors I really love this week that I haven't participated in their line of work in a while. So I think this will make me kind of go back and indulge in some more Eddie Murphy that I've missed in a while.
That sounds great. Is there any way I could borrow your Netflix login so I could watch this movie?
Chris, you can, but you're going to have to fly to my home address and connect to my Wi-Fi every 30 days, apparently.
Well, I think there's also a way you can do this, but you have like every 7 days you have to re-authenticate, like with a code or whatever. Is something else I saw. So like everyone knows Netflix is getting rid of password sharing. It's causing an uproar, but as we've talked about, we don't support these multi-billion-dollar industries, right? Netflix is making plenty of money upwards, but it's funny that people think they're going to lose revenue because they're getting rid of the freeloaders. No one's canceling the subscription. You're just literally making other people have to buy if they want to watch Netflix.
It's like I'm almost just like an observer, kind of just watching people in general freak out, but I just have to say, like, like I feel like I don't want to anger like a beehive, right? But I just want to say like I just stop being broken away. Like I know like Netflix is not getting any cheaper, right? But I'm just saying like either don't have it and don't complain, or like have it and complain. It's almost just like, how can you complain about something that you're not paying for? I think is the thing that kind of makes me the most annoyed in a way, right? And another thing too, it's like, and also I don't give Netflix the benefit of the doubt, right? They have like an infamous tweet out there that was from years ago that says love is sharing your password. So it's just like they had it coming to them, right? They totally opened themselves up for all this criticism. But you can't, but like even though like Netflix might be becoming anti-password sharing, all of these streaming services across the board do all types of shady stuff to inflate their numbers, right? Yeah. That's all they want. Like, revenue is like a secondary thing for a streaming service. The first thing that they want to do is impress the shareholders and the investors, and then they worry about making revenue later. It's the same reason why, like, Disney Plus and HBO Max will like bolt on like a quote unquote free subscription to like any cell phone plan out there, or any random thing you do out in the world will get you a free subscription, because
I have 3 HBO Max subscriptions right now, Mike. I am 3 of their numbers.
Yes, which is hilarious, and they want that. They want to take those numbers so when they do their quarterly earnings, they can say, hey, we have X number of subscribers. Isn't that amazing? So I feel like this is kind of Netflix way to do it as well. You could say like, like look at all these people like logging in, look at all these hours watched, even though only X number of people are actually paying for those hours watched. So it was going to happen eventually, right? Netflix is running out of people to sign up to their service.
Well, the thing is, it's starting to come back on all these services that came around in 2010, right? Netflix, Uber, Airbnb, they were the darlings, 10, 15 years ago when they started, right? They were fighting the system, becoming something different. And then now they've become the problem, and everyone's kind of turning against them. So I think it's well earned that I've not been a Netflix subscriber in years, like definitely I don't know 5+ years. We've as long as we've been on the show almost. But Airbnbs I don't enjoy either. Uber pricing is worse than taxis in some places. So it's just funny that when the market finally catches up and reacts, like everyone's like upset at these people because like Netflix, they were like, well, we lost all our stuff because everyone created their own streaming service, right? So now we've got to raise prices, they raise prices and get rid of the free subscribers so we can make some money back. And hopefully if I was to look on the good side, Mike, they can take this money and invest it in shows that last beyond 2 seasons.
Yes,
they've got good. Umbrella Academy has been good on there. Stranger Things is something good on there. What else is there's some good stuff on Netflix. I can't fault it for the first but
yeah, I think it was about a week ago Nielsen revealed their like top 15 or maybe top 20 of last year, and for series, Netflix had like 13 or like 12 out of those 15 top shows. So Netflix is absolutely dominating the streaming series. And then surprisingly, you kind of thought maybe it would go the same way for films, but no, Disney Plus like rocked the top 15 films watched on streaming.
Yeah, and I'm saying like a Squid Game Wednesday, those are all Netflix darlings, right? Like so I mean, there is good stuff over there, and there's reason to have a subscription or watch it, but like it's really it's funny to watch, and like not to poke but freeloaders be upset they're losing access to this.
I guess to summarize, similar to when it comes to politics, if you don't vote, you can't complain. If you're not paying for Netflix, I don't want to hear you complain about Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, again, I think if you want it, the value is there, but. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk. So tomorrow, Mike, is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania's red carpet premiere out in Hollywood. I believe there was one in Australia already, but I've not seen anything from this. Now, when red carpets hit, that means a lot more people, more than just reviewers, are starting to watch this movie. You're going to get initial tweet reactions, and you're going to get possibly end-credit spoilers for these movies. So this is the time to get those keywords blocked.
Yeah, I was scrolling through one of my feeds, and luckily this content creator put up a spoiler warning, but he was just like, "Oh, I just got a poster mailed to me that wasn't supposed to be sent out yet for Ant-Man Quantumania, and he said there was like a spoiler on the poster, so I was like, swipe, scroll, I don't need to see this. So yeah, spoilers come in all forms, and I should probably be blocking those things here soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I did see, I think the one of the producers at Marvel Studios, it might have been for Ant-Man, I don't know. It's talking about how they're also Disney changing the way they do, review, test screenings for employees there. You can no longer bring friends. You can only if you work there. You can only go watch the shows or the test screenings, because they're like, yeah, we're having a little too many leaks going on with them lately. And I was like, that's fair, I guess. People sign this stuff, but if you don't work there, you don't really have any consequences at the end of the day. It sounds like. Excuse me. Also, did you see that the book that Ant-Man has been reading to, Look Out for the Little Guy, is an actual real book and is releasing this fall?
I think I saw some sort of promo video of Paul Rudd holding a book, and I was like, no, I'm on an Ant-Man media detox right now, so I'm guessing that's what that was.
Yeah, and it's nothing to do with so in the I guess movie, he's become a little bit of a celebrity. He wrote a book, and someone has actually, we don't know who has written this book, probably not Paul Rudd, but someone has written this book, and it will be published this fall, September or something. So you can buy this real book for Ant-Man's autobiography that's actually in the movie. This is almost on par with the Hawkeye show, probably doing a real Avengers the musical. If they brought that to Broadway, it'd be yes, it'd be on par with that.
Well, I mean, is this the logical media evolution? Because the last time we checked in with Scott Lang, kind of through another movie, wasn't he doing a podcast, right? When with was it Miss Marvel? That he has his own podcast. So now he's turning that podcast into a book, right?
Yeah, was he? I don't remember.
I think it was a background gag or something that he had his own podcast, or he himself was being interviewed on another person's podcast. It was something like that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's funny. Out of the two books Marvel has announced they're publishing this month, this is probably the only one I'm like, yeah, I could take a look at this. I'd buy this and put it on the shelf or whatever coffee table. I think it'd be funny to have that little thing there, but we don't know anything about the authors yet. We'll report that later. In other Marvel character news, surprising, I shared this with you right away, Mike. This blew my mind. Hitmonkey got renewed for season 2 at Hulu.
Wild.
Now the same returning cast is coming. Jason Sudeikis is voice of the assassin ghost who's with him. I think Olivia Wilde's in it. But this show has dropped the Marvel branding, so it's not Marvel's Hitmonkey. It's just Hitmonkey. As it moves into season 2, I guess, to maybe shake itself of the Marvel Television branding that it originally had as well.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm checking. I haven't done any deep dives on the first season, but it looks like it's sitting at about a 7.8 on IMDb, which, if you adjust for, the IMDb inflation, if you will, that's a pretty good rating for an animated series. So, yeah, it must have been doing so well enough on Hulu that even the people in charge were just like, yeah, let's keep it going. Let's just remove it from, the Marvel kind of cinematic landscape. And just impressed. I would have thought, no matter how good this was, right, they would have canned it.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it just goes to show maybe they were like, this is a character we have no intention of ever using or referencing ever. So, if you want to do it, go. I also think, and you tell me what you think, they already created 2 seasons because animation tends to double down on their seasons, right, when they do it. And
now that actually, Noah, I will endorse. I wouldn't even call that a conspiracy theory. Yeah. I would endorse that theory, and I was gonna almost go totally over the hill and say oh, maybe somebody has dirt on somebody at the studio and they were able to convince them to greenlit a second season, because it's just so this decision is so outside of the current Marvel playbook right now, right? Yeah. But yeah, no, I think you might be right. Maybe there's just there's content sitting there. It's practically done, and if we just take this little branding name off of it, we can just put another slot on Hulu, right?
And I just double checked here. It is 84% on Rotten Tomatoes as well. So,
I mean, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe if you have low hopes, it's going to come through for you. Season 2 coming to Hulu. It says coming soon. Well, so I could literally, when they said coming soon, that made me think that maybe they've just been sitting on another 10 episodes, right? And we just got to polish them up, get them done, shoot them over to Hulu, and get it out of the way. So really, and honestly, I don't see Hitmonkey becoming a character in the MCU anytime soon. So, absolutely fine with that. I'm not surprised the other shows got canceled at the end of the day. Shifting over to Disney Plus, Star Wars Visions, the I guess anthology series done by different anime studios for Star Wars that came out last year, maybe 2 years ago. I don't know. I didn't watch beyond the first episode, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah, it was a little rough. It didn't live up to the hopes that I hope it would have. Some of the stuff was fun, but overall, I was like, this is fine.
Yeah. Season 2 is coming to Disney Plus on May 4th. May the 4th be with you. And this will highlight different animation studios from around the world. So I pulled it up here. This is where I think your knowledge might come in handy. The only one I know of is Aardman, which is known for Wallace and Gromit.
Yes, I'm excited for this. Some sort of like stop motion-y vibe of Star Wars. I would tune in for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there's a new Wallace and Gromit movie was announced recently. So they're out there working on it. But yeah,
it looks like Studio Mir is returning, and I believe they're the ones that did they do the short with the twins, I want to say? I'm not 100% sure, but I think Mir is a returning studio, so there could be a chance that there's a continuation of maybe one of the stories from season 1. But yeah, we weren't big Visions fans overall, which is a bit of a bummer, but who knows, maybe season 2 will turn it around. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking at their stuff on not Instagram, on Wikipedia right now, and I don't see Star Wars in here. But that doesn't mean they didn't help with something. But they do a lot of the Warner Brothers animated movies, right? Like the Batman and Superman movies, the Mortal Kombat movies they've been doing over there. They're actually they're the main animation studio for Harley Quinn on season 3 coming up. So
great.
Nothing wrong with that. But I think some of it's good, some of it's it just didn't click with us. But that doesn't mean you can't get over there and enjoy it when they come out to May 4th. So I think that's fantastic. We did get the the Studio Ghibli short with Grogu a couple months ago. I figured I thought that was like maybe they were going to save that for season 2 of Visions, but they did drop that, and I've seen that out in the wild. They've actually turned that into toy figures and stuff like that you can buy. So, good for them. All right, let's jump into the meat of the show. We are 27 minutes in. Let's get into the meat here. The DC universe. We were joking on Monday. James Gunn only has 24 hours left to give us some information, or he lied. Even I think I sent you congressmen were like, we demand James Gunn gives us stuff, or we're gonna bring him in for questioning.
Oh yeah, there's like one dude in Congress who's like who has like comic book nerd. I think he's down here in Long Beach, actually, not too far from me. But he like puts like comic book nerd in his Twitter profile, so good for him. He got his clicks.
Yeah, he did. He did, and James Gunn responded even, right? Like as you told him not to do. He's responding out to these politicians. So, less than 24 hours later, I believe this was on Tuesday, right? The 31st. James Gunn put out a video on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you were, to announce the Phase 1 of the DC universe, and it is currently called Gods and Monsters. So that's a fun little title for their Phase 1, right? I think that's good. He's got a theme to it kind of going on here. But I will tell you, before we get into this, his announcement ruffled some executives' feathers over at Warner Brothers.
Ooh, tell me more.
Because he literally just said the previous team running this fucked up, and they didn't do a good job. And but he also went on to say, he and Peter Safran actually report directly to David Zaslav. So these executives, no matter how mad they are at him, can't even do anything because they're lower on the totem pole than him at this point. In there. So
it is pretty wild. Yeah, if you think about how far up Safran and Gunn are on the chain, because if you go right to Zavlov, above him it's just kind of like the board, right? There's not a whole lot going on there. So yeah, they can kind of swing their D's around, if they want. I experienced this announcement
DCs,
kind of
if you will.
I experienced this announcement in kind of two different ways. The first one was just, I think you sent me the slate just
The
as
picture,
as like
yeah.
as a list, right? So I was experiencing it, scrolling through, like going like, okay, I know what some of this is, right? But it took me until like the end of the day to actually watch the video from Gunn, and I would say watching the video from Gunn is probably the way to experience the announcement. It's not like there was like tons of fanfare and fireworks and like lots of like flashy motion graphics on the screen, right? But it was just nice hearing it come from him, hearing one of the people in charge speaking from like a tone of excitement got me a lot more hyped, right? Because like out of context, it's just like, okay, these are just like projects, right? But kind of, hearing the fanfare from the man himself, which it's obvious, right? It seems like Gunn is going to be the point man of this, I'm sure Peter Safran could have been in this video if he wanted. He could have taken half the dialogue, half of the announcements, right? But there seems to be a calculated decision to make Gunn the front man of this universe.
And Peter Safran's always been a producer, right? He's always been behind the scenes on everything. So he is doing something. He's running stuff. We just don't know what it is. And usually when a producer is doing things and you don't know what he's doing, that's a sign he's doing a good job, right? Like he's making sure things get done, and he's not trying to make it his way or the highway at the end of it. So good for him. Yeah, we've linked the YouTube link to that announcement here if you want to see it. Literally, it says James Gunn is a talking head, and then occasionally some images.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's very, very low. It's not low quality, but it's very simple. It's very basic, and that's what he needed to do, I think, to get it done. But they literally came in at like noon Eastern on Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever the last day of the month was, and everyone's like, okay, awesome. But let's go ahead. We're gonna split this up. There are, I guess, 3 or 4 different ways to look at this, Mike. And the first one we're gonna talk about is the movie slate, right, for the DC universe going forward. And the one that we knew the most about is that there was a Superman movie coming, right? And it's going to be called Superman Legacy, and it has a release date of July 1st, 2025. So we are looking at an entire 2024 without any DC movies hitting the theaters at all.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the full slate here as we go through the bullet points, but as most people are kind of starting to define, the Superman movie will kind of be the quote-unquote real kickoff of the DCU. And I think actually even Gunn says something to that effect in the video. Like, we'll have, like, streaming titles and other things that'll ladder up right to this new universe that he's creating, but apparently this Superman movie, kind of not wholly unlike Man of Steel, was trying to kick off the DCEU. It all starts with Superman, and man, I am so curious, right? What a Superman Gunn movie looks like. Like, is Gunn going to be able to dial back the humor, right? Is that what Superman needs, maybe, to lighten it up, to make it feel more like hope? But like, Superman's kind of like almost like a stoic Boy Scout in a way, right? So I don't know. I'm not trying to pigeonhole Gunn into one thing, but I feel like the couple things that we've seen from Gunn have been kind of similar in tone. So yeah, I'm curious if he's gonna what angle he's gonna approach this at.
And it's a singular character, right? Most of his stuff are ensemble films, and the way he's saying that this is a younger Superman. He's working as a news reporter. He's not very well seasoned in the world, but there are existing superheroes, and there will be more superheroes and villains arising. So how will he handle a lone solitary character, if you will? Because everything else, he's usually handling teams of characters throughout everything. So I think that's the biggest question for me. The Hollywood Reporter is also saying that Gunn is likely to direct this movie as well. Like, he will write it in and direct it. For that, because I don't remember when his contract as the DC CEO is up. That's like 2 years, right? So was it 2 years that I think maybe, does that sound right to you?
I don't remember.
He might not be a co-CEO by this point. He's getting it started. They're following what they play, so he might not be the co-CEO and could direct this and get it out in time for that. But I think that just means to me, July 1st, 2025, we are a little less than year, 2.5 years away. Right. Yeah. 1, 2. There's probably going to be some announcements on casting and like some other things kind of that need to come to light as they kind of move forward with this slate. Because it sounds like they're going to be sticking to it pretty solid.
Yeah. And I believe Gunn did clarify, out there, and I think these words are important, that Henry Cavill was not fired from the role. He was never hired from the role, right? I feel like him returning in the post-credit scene to Black Adam didn't help anything, right? But that was before, these two were in charge, right? So that was just kind of like a random free radical that was flying out there in the world. So it was, you could argue whether or not, and we have on the show, what end of the stick Henry Cavill got when it came to the DCU, but it's over. It's the past. It's been very clear that they are trying to move forward, but I don't know. We have some announcements of maybe some other characters sticking around, so I think the ball is still proverbially a little in the air, right?
Yeah. It's I wouldn't say anything's definitely written in stone yet, but we'll see kind of going forward here. But let's jump into the next one. I think this is a very interesting part here because this is going to be a movie called The Brave and the Bold. And if you remember from, I believe, the early 2000s, maybe late 90s, there was an animated series called Batman, The Brave and the Bold, if you will. And this movie will actually focus on Batman and his son, Damian Wayne, who goes on to become Robin in the comic books. But he was raised as a little assassin. So this is very interesting because Damian Wayne has been around in the comics for a long, not forever, but a long time and becoming a popular character. So how are they going to handle this Batman and his son dynamic, right? A lot of people are like, oh, what age is, if this is in the same universe, how old is this Batman, right? Is he, he could be 30, right? Because he meets Damian when Damian's 10 years old. So, to me, he could be, 30 and have a 10-year-old kid. He could be pushing 40, so we don't know where this Batman is going to come in at. But it seems to be very, from what I understand, this duo here of Batman and Damian Wayne the whole way through.
I mean, it's a new dynamic for sure than what we've seen in other Batman movie. The only time we've really gotten to see a Robin in earnest was with Batman Forever and
Batman and Robin. Yeah, it was the same.
Yeah, Batman and Robin.
Chris
and
O'Donnell,
they were, and they were, it was goofy takes, right?
30-year-old dude playing like a 16-year-old kid, right?
Yeah. So it seems like we might be taking a more serious approach, possibly. With a Robin character and a different type of Robin, right? If you were to kind of just poll the general population that knows of Batman but doesn't really know anything outside of the films, right? Some people might not know that Batman ever had a son and became a Robin. So I think that'll be a fun, exciting, fresh story for a broad population that usually goes to see Batman movies.
And what's cool about Damian is that again, he was raised literally by assassins. His mother's Talia al Ghul, who we know Ra's al Ghul, right, from the other comic books. He is not averse to killing, right? And so Batman's whole thing is don't kill. So you're trying to teach the son you didn't know you had in your I guess image hey, don't kill. But he's all he's known is killing his whole life as an assassin. I just looked it up. He's actually been around since 1987. So kind of kicked off a little bit, more recently, but that's good to know. The character has history in the comic books as well. So, Brave and the Bold, our Batman movie from James Gunn in the DC universe. Next, we're gonna get to a weird one here called a movie called The Authority, and the image accompanying this reminded me a lot of the Marvel Ultimates, right cover, right, where you have a bunch of characters that look familiar, but they're not the familiar versions of what you know. And I did a little looking, and the Authority is obviously superpowered people who want to change the world as they see it. Now, this doesn't seem to be a Justice League, right? This isn't characters we know. These are very, very obscure powered characters. And I believe they even came from another universe. I think maybe it's the Malibu verse that DC acquired in the 90s, 80s or 90s, and brought them over to DC. So as someone who doesn't, I don't think you would have heard of these characters at all, Mike. What do you think of this?
Well, no, I mean, and the way kind of Gunn described them in his announcement was a team of superheroes that will they'll do anything, right? They almost seem a little bit more renegade to kind of protect the world in their vision. And it was interesting because I hadn't really thought about this angle from DC, right? Because they've been such failure to launch when it comes to their broader universe for so long now that I just keep forgetting that, like, oh, Marvel has been taking these obscure heroes from comic books and turning them into franchises for like over a decade now, right? They're kind of really good at doing it. So I guess like Gunn was just like, why can't we do that? Why can't we take a team that only like real comic book nerds know about and turn them into something? And that's what I feel like this is. Now, you could probably argue who's more niche, the Authority or Guardians of the Galaxy, right? I would say Guardians of the Galaxy was more well known before they got turned into a movie franchise, just because the characters were a little bit more iconic. So like, you got a little raccoon and you got a tree man, whereas the Authority from like a visual standpoint are just kind of, they're just all human dudes, or like dudes, humanoids, in the broad term, right? But yeah, I think this is kind of exciting, right? Give me an obscure DC character and make me love them, when they're having a hard time just getting very well-known characters, like Hawkman or the Flash, to get onto the screen. So I hope it works out for Gunn. This is a bit of a swing, but obviously it's not impossible to do it because we've seen Marvel do it.
Definitely in his wheelhouse, right? This is akin to Guardians of the Galaxy, Suicide Squad, but people with actual like powers, I guess, if you will. Mm-hmm. And kind of looking at there's tons, dozens of characters they can pull from. And I was wrong; it wasn't Malibu; it was Wildstorm universe, and it was written created by Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch. Brian Hitch, I think, did draw the Ultimates, and that's why it reminded me of the same thing. But looking at these characters, I'm like, they have someone called the Jenny Sparks, the spirit of the 21st century, like that's her, and Apollo, the sun god, and Midnighter, and the Doctor. I'm like, well, these all sound like second-rate characters of like Avengers or DC characters. So I'm interested to see kind of how they pull them together, and it's going to be, I think, again, a quirky movie, if you will, at the end of it. But I'm glad they all do have abilities. Moving on to Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. They're really leaning into these Kryptonians, Mike. This Krypton stuff is. Well, Supergirl. So this one, as James Gunn described it, is not the standard Supergirl we see. This is Superman's cousin, who didn't land on Earth, but she had to live on like a part of blown up Krypton and like watch people around her die, and it was like survival of the fittest kind of thing. So she didn't come to Earth and land later and grow up as a younger version of Superman's cousin. This sounds like one who's like gonna be a little more traumatized, if you will, at the core of it, like growing up on a blown up planet, if you will. So I don't know much else about this one. This one is like kind of like I'm hoping to learn more. This is be a great opportunity to introduce Brainiac into the DCU. We've never really got Brainiac on the big screen proper, so I think it'd be a great opportunity for that.
Well, this could be a good point to highlight all of the comic books for a lot of these movies that were announced are all at the top of the charts on Amazon right now.
A lot of them are sold out too. Like that was the crazy part.
Yeah, exactly. So people are hyped. They're looking out there to do their research. This is an exciting time for the comic book creators that have kind of created these properties. And I wouldn't say they've been languishing, right? But it's kind of fun to have a new spotlight on their work, right? So if you're at your local comic book shop, I'm sure that they've set up a special like point of sale table, right, for all of these announcements. So yeah, go check out some of those.
Yeah. And as Supergirl, the Woman of Tomorrow book it was based on is actually relatively new. It came out. It was published in 2022. So you may be able to get some issues to that as well, rather than the whole trade. And lastly, the last movie he did announce was Swamp Thing. We all know who Swamp Thing is. He didn't really give us a lot of Swamp Thing, but one of the images they showed was like 100 different Swamp Things together, like a collage of swamp people, if you will.
Yeah, I think maybe the only other kind of tidbit they gave was like Swamp Thing was going to be connected to this universe, but maybe not in a much of a direct way as some of the other things. Mm-hmm. So maybe this is going to be a bit of an offshoot, maybe to develop a different side of the DC. Yeah. Where are we DCU, DCEU?
No, the ECU's dead. It's just DCU at this point. So
DCU, okay.
DC Universe DCU. Is what they've been calling it. So yeah, Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing's been around for years. There's been movies. There was a TV show on the CW for a while, right? Like, everybody knows Swamp Thing, but I'm interested to see how they tie a version into this. Let's jump into the TV series. Now, he did also say there will be synergy between the movies and the I say TV series or streaming series, whatever you want. And these will vary a little bit, Mike, because we have a mix of live action and animated movies in here. And the first one is I think we have the most information on is actually a show called Waller. And it's not one of those southern things you say whenever you're rolling in the dirt. You're not wallering around. You're following Amanda Waller. And this will be a live action show. And apparently it takes places between seasons 1 and 2 of Peacemaker. But Peacemaker was not on this list, by the way. I don't know if you caught that. And in an interview later, they were like, we don't really have time for season 2 of Peacemaker right now. So it sounds like they are, that might be taking a backseat a little bit while they build out some other stuff.
See, this is just kind of writing on the wall and probably a bit of something we've talked about before when we've been cautioned about James Gunn being so heavily involved. It's like you can't kind of do both of these jobs unless you clone yourself, right? Yeah. You either got to be like a high-level mastermind producer, right, that is, pulling the strings and webs for all of these movies and TV shows, right? Or you're the creative that's actually making it. I feel like it's going to be tough for him to do both. Now, if I was Gunn and was given all of this control, right, and I finally get to make my dreams come true of maybe making a Superman movie, something maybe I've dreamed my entire life to do. Yeah, go ahead and do it, but maybe check that box and maybe let all the other filmmakers do everything else. I don't know. I'm just worried about him getting stretched thin, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think he's not writing Waller. Somebody else is. We'll talk about what the other things, right? But you're right. He is. At what point do you burn out and does the quality suffer, right, of everything, as well as, again, putting yourself in everything? I think Peacemaker Season 2 would be, a high priority, right? I think that's something that they can carry over pretty quickly. It had a lot of staying power, a lot of star power even, right? John Cena and everybody involved. It was a great show. I don't absolutely think it's the best show, but it's still a great show. It's fun, watched, entertaining. But, the fact that they're pushing up a live action version of just Amanda Waller, that she was only in, she's like the only connecting thread from the DCEU that's left, right? Yeah. And they want to make a whole show around her. It needs a really good pull to be that good. So I don't know what it is yet, but they're going 100% in by having her have her own show at the end of this. Viola Davis is great. I think she's mean, she's menacing, she's essentially the Nick Fury of the DC universe. So I don't know. I'd like to see more Peacemaker, but it sounds like they're going to do this first before that. Maybe they'll bring her more into Peacemaker Season 2 if they do this first then, I guess. Yeah. Rather than just be literally what they do, have her on the screen the whole time, like on a phone for most of the show.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Now, the other thing, I guess the first one they announced was an animated show. I believe this will be maybe the first thing that comes out of the DC universe, and it's called Creature Commandos. And it's an animated show written by James Gunn. This is another project he has written for this. Leave some jobs for the rest of the people out in Hollywood, why don't you?
Yeah, I do like also how he announced it too. He just kind of very quickly said, "Oh, we got this animated show called Creature Commandos. I've written all of the episodes and blah blah blah." Just okay, just throwing that out there that you can just crank out 8 scripts in a weekend or something like that.
Yeah, and so this show animation looks fine. I looked it up a little bit. It's kind of looks like Suicide Squad, but with more a Frankenstein and a Bride of Frank, not necessarily the universal monsters, but just different types of creatures along the way. Even one of them looks like the fish dude from Hellboy, right? So
yeah, there's was it Creature Command? Yeah, sorry, I'm looking it up real quick because the image that came out from it was more of a press image, right? Yeah, I'm checking it out now. Oh yeah, because we got the Weasel returning as Sean Gunn, right? Yep. We got a robot, Frankenstein woman, a Frankenstein man, a skeleton on fire, like you said, an aqua person, and then is this human dude just Rick Flag again?
Yeah, pretty much. That guy, I looked it up. There's just a regular human dude who is just part of this squad, right? who's like, I guess, like you said, the Rick Flag of this. And the robot dude I thought was like the robot from Doom Patrol for a second. I'm like, oh, is that the robot from Doom Patrol? It does not look like it to be. I couldn't really nail down who these specific characters were. There are some in there that don't have really generic names, so I'd be interested to see, what they kind of pull out of this. But this is like one of their first, I guess, forays into this. The animation style looks a little bit, it reminds me of Invincible a little bit, if I'm going to be completely honest.
I dig the art style. The fun thing about the animated show is that they said the voice actors are going to like cross over into the real live action and then back and forth. So I think that's pretty cool. Like we've seen that a little bit with Marvel and What If, but only one way, right? Only live action to like animated. Yep. This is going to be kind of like they're going to be embracing the animation side of it and making something wholly original and then spinning those characters off. So I think that's kind of cool. It's almost like introducing a character like in a comic book or something, right? And then it becomes live action.
CW did that with some of their like little CW seed shows, right? They have.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
They did some seed episodes and they brought them into the thing. Now I will tell you that announcement, along with TV series and video games, is getting a lot of negative feedback in the industry. Because they're like, how are you going to pay big name actors to do hundreds and hundreds of takes? You're not. Example, he's like, you're not getting Robert Pattinson to come to a voice studio and voice an animated show, right? Like, you don't have that money. You don't have that person's not trained for this. But based on, again, this being the animated show, looking at this, there's only one human in this, right? Everybody else seems to be, could be make-upped or CGI'd the whole way, a la Weasel. So I think that'd be great for the animated people to come and voice the live action versions as well, as long as they had that in mind ahead of time, right? And they're not just voicing over somebody else.
I mean, yeah. And also, like, I do get, like, the nuance there of, like, different professions, different professionals being able to handle different types of roles, right? Yep. Totally understand that, right? But I feel like one big push that the animation community and Guillermo del Toro has also, when he was on his Pinocchio press run, saying that animation is not a genre. Animation is just a filmmaking medium and it should be respected and treated like that. Well, I feel like if you want to make that argument, you also can't make these arguments that like only like animation voice actors can do animated voices, right? Because then now you're starting to make the argument that maybe animation is more of a genre and only certain actors can do anything. I think it's just all specific to the actor in general, right? I think there's a lot of great voice actors out there that I just don't think could do live action performances very well. And the same way you could say like there's great live action performers that couldn't do voices. And I would say there's lots of crossover in the middle, and shouldn't be like shoehorning and pigeonholing different people in there. So,
well, I don't know. If that's the case, then they need to standardize the pay across both of them. That's all I'm going to say. Like, if you want to treat them the same, the industries have to view them the same. I think is what it's going to come down to, because that's really what the point of this. I don't think it's the talent. I think it's like, if you're going to pay an actor millions of dollars to do a voice role as well, then the people who do voice roles need to be brought up to that level, I guess.
Yeah, I would imagine, though, a lot of the payment with these big name actors are probably going to get obfuscated with like big overall deals, right? They're going to bring like on a big name actor and it's just like, oh, we're going to pay you X amount to lock you into like X many movies and X number of animated TV shows, and this is just going to be the overall kind of like price that we pay you. So probably the amount of money that they get paid to do like an animation voice acting will never really be able to determine it,
Yeah,
that's my guess.
Yeah, hopefully they figure it out, because it is, it does need to be, again, level playing field for everybody over there across that. Moving on, Booster Gold. Everyone's wanted a Booster Gold movie forever, right? And the only time they ever introduced Booster Gold live action, I'm pretty sure, was in, what was that show? Legends of Tomorrow, in like the final season, and they canceled it before they even got to use the character. So this is great. They said he's a time traveling person with imposter syndrome, and I do believe he will probably tie into Blue Beetle, right? Because it's always been, the comic book team was Blue Beetle and Booster Gold, right? Forever. They've always been synonymous with each other in the comic book. So if they can, use the Blue Beetle movie and kind of tie into this, I think it'd be fantastic going forward. But other than that, I don't have much else on this guy other than, like I said, he's a time traveling person who has literally made himself sound better than what he really is, because he's a faker the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Lanterns. This is probably my favorite show. The Green Lantern show has been that was on HBO Max has been confirmed to be retooled into a show called Lanterns, focusing on both Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, the two, I guess, most primary Green Lanterns, if you will. And they discover a secret on Earth that it's like, I guess, horrible, and they need to figure out how to solve it. So
yeah, and I think they kind of allude to that the secret is supposed to like ladder up to this overall threat that's supposed to be threatening the DCU at large.
Yeah. So that means, like, my guess is they're probably going to be on Earth and other planets, but most of it will probably be set on Earth. That's kind of what I got.
What is it? Is it the anti-life equation that's going to be burned into the ground? Is that what it's going to be?
Yes.
The Lanterns production story has been like wild, right? At one point in time, we had 2 Lantern shows like in like development, right? There was going to be one from like Berlanti, and then there's going to be one from like, what was it, J.J. Abrams or something like that, and then we were trying to figure out how they would connect, if they would at all, and then there was like a movie floating around. So I feel better now that at least we've settled on this is the Lantern thing. This is it. This is the one Green Lantern. It's all the focus is going to go on it right here. So I appreciate now we have some clarity.
Yeah, and using the 2 characters that we know, right? Like the show that we're working on was like didn't have Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart. Like, hey, we picked Guy Gardner and Alan Taylor, like the original Green. Like, no one knows who those are. Like, why would you do that? Everyone wants to see Hal Jordan, so I'm glad they're actually going to bring this to fruition. I think that's the important part for that. Now, I do say, if you watch the video, you're going to see art. There's a Hal Jordan kind of a sketch. He's got his hair and beard. Looks more like a grizzled one, but the other one is Jon Stewart has a yellow glow to him, and we all know yellow lanterns are different. And I was looking at kind of close up here. The ring on his hand matches the yellow lantern ring, which is actually the quote, I guess, enemies of the Green Lantern. So I'm interested to see kind of how they pull this apart. Is it another do they bury the yellow lantern on Earth again, kind of thing from Ryan Reynolds' movie? So we got that's a big question mark along the way. And then lastly is a show called Paradise Lost, which is essentially a continuation of, it sounds like, Wonder Woman lore, right? An island called Paradise Island, which is from the time tied into Themyscira, and he's kind of pushing it as a Game of Thrones style show.
And it's supposed to be like a prequel, so I would imagine this is going to be so far back in time where I almost feel like they haven't made really a decision yet about Wonder Woman or some of these other actors and characters at large, right? So like, let's do this prequel, right, of Themyscira, and we don't have to worry about any of that yet. We'll just see kind of how some of the legalese and the contracts and like the public perception kind of works. But I would be interested in learning more about Paradise Island.
And I'm pretty sure at one point Patty Jenkins was working on a prequel for Wonder Woman, right? Like a show set in this. So this could be the retooling of that even a little bit, right? Like, hey, we've got some scripts. Can we make this work into this story that's going to tie it? So I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's the case. So we'll keep you guys posted. And I think that's a live action. I think all but Creature Commandos were live action was confirmed. So we'll keep you posted if that changes. So that's our TV series. Now we're going to get into the wild stuff here called Elseworlds, DC's Elseworlds. So Gunn confirmed that the Batman sequel is still going, though. It's coming out 2025. The Joker, Folie à Deux, is coming out, and these are going to be labeled DC Elseworlds because they are not tied to the DC universe at large, and they can stand on their own. Cool, right? I guess that's the big 2. Because those, I think, are already in production.
I mean,
along the way, but there's some more here. But I think that those everyone's just kind of like, why do you have 2 Batmans? Why is this Joker not even in your Batman movie? Right? He's somewhere else.
I just feel bad for Matt Reeves overall, right? I mean, I feel he's a great filmmaker. I really liked his first outing with Robert Pattinson as Batman, right? And in a perfect world, right, this could have been incorporated in some sort of broader universe, right? Because I love the movies, but now I feel like even though I think trilogies, right, can still exist, and it's great when they can stand on their own. You can just have like one nice little box set on your shelf, right, of something that you can just watch. it is unfortunate, right? You can almost see the writing on the wall, right? Where maybe it's like Matt Reeves' third installment of Batman, or maybe it's already happening in the sequel, where maybe there's a character he really wanted to use, and all of a sudden it's like trying to adapt Batman on the CW back in the day, right? Like, no, you can't use that character. You can't use this character. We're using it in the DCU at broader. We don't want to confuse the audience. So I'm a little worried that he has like maybe these grander ideas for his Batman movie, and he's not going to be able to use these things because, you know, the guys on top, Safran and Gunn, are just like, you know, we love you. We love these movies, but like, you know, you can't put Damian Wayne in your Batman movie because we're making a whole movie about the guy over here. It's just going to be way too confusing. So I think that's a bit of a bummer that Matt Reeves kind of just inked this deal for Batman just unfortunately a little too soon, right? So I don't know, like, what is the perfect scenario now for Robert Pattinson as Batman? Is it just they just try to do a Nolan style trilogy again, you know, just make some good movies, make some good money, and walk away?
To me, this is more of I think of a James Bond situation, if you will. I don't think they're going to tell him no if he's got a good idea. I think your example is never going to come right. They're never going to use Damian Wayne in a Robert Pattinson one.
I mean, you don't know. That they could be a possibility.
I just don't see it. But like, I think they're not going to tell him no if he has a good idea at all. And I think they probably worked with him well before they were like, hey, we're gonna do this, to make sure there's no crossover or confusion. I think he's going to be fine. So I think it's fine. I just at some point, you know, it is fine to have Elseworlds. It's fine to have really good stories that can sit on their own. But you know, it goes against what they're trying to say they're doing, right? Like, we're trying to make one cohesive story. But, hey, here's, you know, 2 movies. The Harley Quinn show, animated, is still going to go on. It exists in this Elseworld. Teen Titans Go, animated show, still going to go in this world. I don't think those are going to affect anything. But
I just thought it was so funny how he went out of his way to say Teen Titans Go exists in Elseworld, as in we all thought the Teen Titans Go show would somehow ladder up to this universe. So, I mean, I appreciate the clarification, but no one was expecting it for Teen Titans Go.
Absolutely. He really had to go. So I think, you know, for these, it's fine. These might be the only... I think they're going to find these are going to be the only 2 exceptions, and I don't think they're going to let anything else fly, right? I'm like, they're like, hey, these have made us a lot of money. The people involved are very invested. They're great people, right? What is that? What's his name? Todd Phillips doing the Joker, right? Great guy. He's got great ideas. We're going to let these go on, let them do their own thing, but like at the same time, I do, like you. I agree with you. There's an end for these right after 3 movies, probably.
My 2 suggestions here are a little counterintuitive, but one, I would love for somebody over at the studio to make a really fancy, like, splash motion graphic that says like Elseworlds. So when we're about to engage in content from Elseworlds, we get like a cool little logo up top, just like how they made that whole, like, you know,
the special presentation for
movie
Marvel
one. Yeah, like make one for Elseworlds. I think that would be cool. That would kind of like set the tone, and, you know, you'd be putting more of a official stake in the ground to let the audience know. But also a little counterintuitive in the sense, like, I totally agree. Everything in Elseworlds has a half-life to it, right? This is just like, this is almost more of a way to say, like, oh, Elseworlds is a easier term, whereas in real life, this is just like lingering contracts world, right?
Yeah, if they'd announced something new for this, I'd have been like, yeah, that's great. You know, they're going to embrace both sides of it. The singular story and some really awesome standalone stories, but they didn't announce anything new. They were like, hey, we know what you want to know about your existing stuff, and so here are the confirmed Elseworlds content. I think this ties into our next topic here for DC, and that's the legacy. I'm going to call it the legacy projects, right? These aren't really Elseworlds. These are things that are currently going on that people are curious about. Shazam, Gunn went out of his way to say it kind of hasn't touched the DCEU, kind of exists in its own world, so it's going to keep going. Also, Peter Safran is a producer on this movie franchise, so
yeah, obviously. But it doesn't sound like we've been given any sort of official statement of the future of Shazam, if this could possibly exist in the DCU at any point in time.
I think his tone was, yes, this will exist, but we're probably going to watch the box office returns as well, like, to make sure. It gets some money back. Like if it bombs completely, well, we don't need to make a 3. But this isn't this isn't The Rock. This isn't Black Adam, who we definitely are not bringing into this.
Yeah.
For that, The Flash, he says it's one of the best movies he's ever seen, and it will reset many, but not all things in the DC universe. So it sounds like they are really using that as a kickoff point to change some stuff going forward, right? Like, absolutely.
That's why you hire nerds to control this comic book universe, because we have been screaming at the microphones for years on this podcast of just use the Flash, use the one big story point he has in all of his comic books to fix everything. So, I think there's been like a restatement too that, Ezra Miller seems to be holding up their end of the bargain when it comes to playing nice. So I'm sure they're still being very very cautious with every move they make with Ezra Miller.
Their finger is hovering over that eject seat button. Like any second, if he twitches wrong, boom, he's out.
Yeah, I imagine it's just like best case scenario, right? Everything moves along swimmingly. They can make at least 5 more movies with Barry Allen as with Ezra Miller, right? And then I'm sure there'll be more Flashes in the future. Worst case scenario, like you said, bam, eject button. If Ezra assaults one more person, right? They're just like, no, we're bringing in somebody else. We'll just recast you just like they did with War Machine, Yep, exactly. It's, at the end of the movie, somebody else walks out in a Flash suit. Totally fine.
He pretty much, James also confirmed Blue Beetle still exists and sounds like it will be its own thing, right? Kind of going forward as well. Didn't really delve into it too much. Kind of forgot it was going to theaters, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, Blue Beetle was announced alongside of all of these other properties, so it sounds like Blue Beetle is going to very much exist in the DC, like you said, ladder up with Booster Gold at some point in time. So I'm excited for Blue Beetle. I want to see what happens. I wouldn't say I necessarily like the actor, but I'm kind of endeared to him from Cobra Kai. Yeah. He plays like an annoying kind of teenager, but in the last season of Cobra Kai, he has hit puberty real hard. He's like starting to get like buff, like his traps are filling out. I was like, oh, he's turning into like this. Like just in a couple years, he'll be like taking his shirt off for like, like a Magic Mike like reboot or something like that, right? So look out for this kid. He's blowing up literally and figuratively.
Well, maybe his Blue Beetle workout carried over to the show for him.
Yeah, maybe.
Aquaman 2 is still coming to theaters. The future is unknown, but apparently they confirmed in an interview afterwards that Jason Momoa will not be playing 2 characters going forward. So he may not be Lobo at all.
Yeah, it is weird, right? Because Aquaman, his movie was relatively successful, somewhat unmarred from a lot of the DCEU, trials and tribulations, and that's what happens when you place a whole movie under the water, right? You don't have to worry about a lot of other things.
The director just was like, what does Zack Snyder do? Oh, I don't like that. I'm just gonna do whatever the fuck I want in my movie. Like, they can talk underwater. Don't care. We don't need air bubbles to talk down here. So
yeah, but unfortunately, we don't know what the quality of the sequel is gonna be like, because we don't know what the hell's happening with Mara. Like, how integral was she to the plot? How much have they removed her, replaced her? I don't even remember where we left off with the drama of Amber Heard in this movie. So is there enough to jump back from here?
Well, I think my understanding, they were filming it while that was going on, so they could easily remove her and replace those things. So I think if she's out, it won't affect it too much. But I've got faith in the team behind this. If you take her out, the rest of the movie's still going to hold up, right? I believe in the actors and crew there.
And I'm curious if there's like a credo, if there's a rule kind of written on the walls at DCU offices right now of like, what are they following as what is truth, right? Because if Jason Momoa continued as Aquaman, right, like, well, what are we supposed to perceive, right? We have seen him play Aquaman alongside of different Batman, different Superman, and we know those characters are getting recast. So I'm not saying audiences don't have flexibility and imagination, right? Yeah. But at some point in time, you do need to draw like lines here of like what is and isn't. And so
they say he won't play playing 2 characters. Well, what if he stops playing one and starts playing the other? He's only playing one character at that point. So like, was this like a way for them to like not commit to it yet because contracts haven't been signed? But like,
yeah,
without
that could be it.
We
too.
didn't lie. He's only playing one character at a time.
Yeah, only say exactly what we have to. And I think you bring up a good point earlier, too. I think a lot of these decisions are going to come down to box office performance, right? Like, maybe they have goodwill intentions of like, oh, yeah, let's continue this Aquaman series. Everything's going great. You know, the first movie made money. People liked it. And what if they planned out this whole timeline, right, and announced all of these Aquaman sequels, right? And the movie comes out and it's just a bomb, right? Nobody goes to see it. Nobody likes it. You know, we've seen plenty of directors release sequels that, you know, kind of jump the shark, which is funny because it's an Aquaman movie. And then they're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have announced all of these Aquaman tie-ins.
And they're also not going to say Jason Momoa is no longer playing Aquaman like 10 months before the movie comes out. They're going to be like, yeah, we're sticking to our guns to this movie. You know, literally our James guns to this movie before we give up on it. So like, yeah, they're obviously going to hype it up until it releases, right? Like James said The Flash is the best movie he's ever seen. I doubt that. I really doubt that. But like, he's going to hype it up as much as he can before it comes out.
And maybe a good comparison, right? When we saw the new Marvel slate rolled out, I mean, we didn't see a lot of hype for Eternals, right? Like, I think we know that those characters are going to be returning in some fashion, right? But there was not a lot of fanfare there with plans of those characters. So yeah, every studio does this.
I'm pretty sure also. Eternals was Marvel's most popular Disney Plus movie last year. Did you see that article? It had the most number of hours. I think it's like it was the second or 13th most streamed film for the entire year last year on any service was Eternals. Can you believe that?
Well, it's probably because nobody saw it in theaters, so they're like,
true.
"Oh, we'll watch it."
It's way easier to digest almost a 3-hour movie on a streaming service when you can pause and go to the bathroom. But anyway, so yes, and also Gal Gadot she's not out as Wonder Woman yet. My guess is, you know, she's not been fired because she hasn't been hired. But you know, she's still on the cast list, right? Like, hey, she's probably gonna show up in Shazam. She's probably gonna show up in The Flash. So they can't really say she's fired until those movies are out, right? Or like maybe not fired. We're not continuing with her until all of her roles are on screen and it's now behind her along the way, right? Like, you know, Henry Cavill, they were like, we didn't fire him because we didn't hire him, but like, he's not coming in any of these other movies in 2023. I think Wonder Woman will be in Shazam and The Flash at some point. At least if they're doing the reset, like, hey, we're flying past Wonder Woman as the timeline resets, and now she's gone, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, there's still legacy projects. We don't know how this is going to happen, but we will probably know more come back in 1 year when they announce the next slate of movies, right after 2023 is done, and we'll tell you where these are. The other thing is, you know, mentioned here the plans to have live action voice actors across animated versions, across shows, live action movies, and video games, and they're hoping to put out 2 movies and 2 shows a year. Now, when they said 2 movies and 2 shows a year, do you think they'll hit a 2024 release at all for any of these projects, Mike? Is my question for you.
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. The quickest things and the most nimble thing.
Joker 2, sorry, is the only one, but I don't count that. But yeah.
Yeah, probably from the TV streaming side of things, those are going to be the easiest lifts probably to get off the ground and moving. It seems like that Waller show could get moving pretty quickly. I mean, I think the most interesting bit here, as we kind of like maybe wrap up this new DCU synergy point, is that apparently video games are going to be involved, and I think that's exciting. I think it's going to be extremely difficult to pull off. We kind of mentioned something similar last week when we talked about like kind of like this Tomb Raider connected universe at Amazon, with like the release and schedule of like video games being really difficult. But Marvel hasn't even been able to do that yet. They haven't been able to put out a game that really leans into the MCU at all. So if DC can pull it off, that's something that they can hold over Marvel's head. Yeah,
and I guess the other thing is Marvel, I don't think they don't want to. As long as DC says all our games are not just DCU, I think that's important, right? Like, there needs to be like this Suicide Squad kills the Justice League game, right? That's not going to be in the movie. That's based in the Arkham universe. There's a bunch of other things they can be doing with DC games that are not DCU related. So if they're doing both types of games, I think that's important because, you know, as we've talked, the Spider-Man game, in the Spider-Man movies are fantastic. The Spider-Man game is also fantastic, right? Like, I'm glad they didn't try to do the movies in the Spider-Man game form, and they can tell a story that fits that. So I think, to me, it'd be interesting to see what characters they pick for games, and what kind of, I guess, genre of game that is, if you will.
Yeah, and they really have to do their best to isolate the story from like a timeline point of view, because as we all know, I mean, I just saw like a headline of the new Star Wars game getting delayed.
So, 6 weeks.
Yeah, even a little bit longer. They're just going to have to pick an isolated story that, if theoretically this game gets delayed by like 2+ years, right, which has happened, it's not going to destroy the continuity.
And I believe Warner Brothers has a video game studio, so this helps them a little bit, right, to have an internal studio tied to it. But at the same time, what Warner Brothers game am I like excited to play? Other than Harry Potter, I'm excited to play Harry Potter. Or I guess Hogwarts Legacy. We're not going to say Harry Potter, Hogwarts Legacy, but they do need to be careful with that. This is also where some of the gaming industry was pushing back about acting like you're doing 300 lines and you're only using 20 of them, right? Like who's doing that and so on and so forth. So as we talked about, as long as everything is equal across the board and everything is fair game, I think it'll be well received. So. Yeah, DCU. Oh, last 2 more bits of this. I put them separately, Mike, before we get into this. So James Gunn and Peter Safran did interviews, or I guess like a press conference after this video came out, right? And talked to people. And one of those is the question about Superman and Lois. We've talked about this quite a bit. Where does this CW show lie? Apparently, as James Gunn said, this is a show everybody likes and will keep going for a bit. So they are committing to at least 2 more years of this show after the current season.
For a bit. I love that little nugget of information. Like, it's nice that he acknowledges that it's a good show, but I would imagine it wraps up maybe just before the Superman
that's what I was saying. Like,
movie comes out.
The 3rd season is about to drop. That gives them 2 years and 2 more seasons, right? Five seasons. That's great. That's more than you can hope for now in today's TV landscape. I mean, if you can get 5 seasons out of anything, that's a success. I'm looking it up here. I'm going back and look at the Lois and Clark show. Only had like 4 years, so 4 seasons. So if they can get 5 out of this, it's beating the only Superman show I remember watching. When I was younger. So. Good for them. Then also the Penguin show, it's at Matt Reeves' universe, is confirmed for an 8-episode series for the show, and kind of talk about the power vacuum after the death of Carmine Falcone in that universe, and how the Penguin, I guess Oswald Cobblepot, fills that void a little bit with the crime syndicates there. So.
Yeah, maybe they get lucky with this show, and this is another reason why they should make that Elseworlds logo that they can throw in front of this content. Of where, since this is more of like a show that's kind of just highlighting a character we've been introduced to, there's a chance that this could kind of be qualified as maybe like a mini series, right? We don't need a season 2 of the Penguin. We're just going to give you a little bit more context, so the next time he shows up, maybe in like Batman 3, right? Or Batman 3, and he's looking a little bit more menacing and Penguin-like. We know how he got there,
Right, absolutely. And I don't think he will be a main villain, but maybe like, the next one could be another, again, it's filling the gap as these characters evolve, right? And become the ones that we know and are familiar with. So I don't think he's the villain of Batman 2, but definitely, like you said, down the road, the Batman 3 or whatever they call it. Lastly, I threw this in here because I thought it was fun. We grew up, of the same age. King of the Hill was a huge show when we were growing up. It's like one of Mike Judge's longest running, most famous series, right? Of everything he did between Beavis and Butthead and Daria, and what else did he do?
Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, Silicon Valley. Office Space, right? He's done a lot of stuff, but they're doing another revival of King of the Hill at Hulu. So they're bringing back the same voice cast and actors to bring the show into the modern era, if you will, which was very familiar because I was like, didn't they do this with Futurama? Futurama was on it's Netflix, coming to Netflix as well, the revival. So like all these animated shows, like remember tuning in on Sundays, Mike, when we were younger, and you gotta watch The Simpsons, King of the Hill, Futurama. They're all bringing them back. Nothing stays dead forever.
Animation domination. I mean, Simpsons never went anywhere. It's a show that will continue till I would assume. I would have, a couple years ago, I would say The Simpsons would end when, just any one of the most famous voice actors on the show, like either retires or passes away, right? But now with like AI and artificial voice modulation, I mean, I don't know if a voice actor would ever sign off their voice rights to something like that, but theoretically, I mean, Chris, you shared with me, this is the pivot, right? This is the pivot for the end of the show. You shared with me there is a Twitch channel out there that is creating Seinfeld content just out of thin air. It's using AI to generate new Seinfeld scripts, and then it's kind of using like procedurally like generated kind of like low grade graphics to kind of animate the characters.
Yeah, what's that I guess the graphics, it's one of the AI, I guess, bots that you train it to do so. So it's been trained on Seinfeld episodes. So it's literally generating the apartment and the outdoor buildings the whole time. And then there's the audio bot doing the voices and the music the whole time. It's
the none of it makes any sense, right? It's just all kind of like garbled nonsense that kind of gets thrown at the screen, and the jokes aren't really funny. But I guess the kind of excitement is the chat. Yeah. Right, the chat on Twitch, freaks out whenever there's like a new location revealed or a new character walks in, or they're making memes out of kind of like the nonsense that they're saying. Yeah. And the animations are really funny because like they don't quite know how to like sit down in the scenes. They kind of just like their bodies just kind of angle and 0G and rotate onto the couch. It's really funny.
Do you ever remember the Dire Straits song "Money for Nothing" music video?
Money. I remember the song, but not the music video.
Google the music video real fast, and you'll look at this animation, and like it's like very, very low grade computer animation for like the 80s, right? Late 80s, early 90s. And I'm like, this reminds me exactly of what I'm watching be created by robots in front of me here.
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it now.
Kind of like remember the TV show Reboot, how everything didn't look quite right for everything, but like I was like, oh, this kind of looks like that, but like. It's because they include the laugh tracks occasionally after the AI supposedly makes a joke. They even cut away to Jerry telling stand up about random stuff in this. It just keeps going. It's a perpetual creation of this stuff, and it's wild to watch.
Yeah, they also cut to the establishing shots of like the building outside, which is funny.
And they'll do that. Go ahead.
I'm pulling it up right now. It's twitchtv.com/watchmeforever. Yeah. And it is still doing strong. I mean, like, you would think that this would just be a flash in the pan kind of like internet meme. But it has right now 10,000 people watching this.
Oh, yeah.
The chat's freaking out, of course.
I'm on the Seinfeld subreddit now. When I scroll through, I like every day there's something new from this show popping up on there. People are clipping it and posting it because it's a show about nothing, and now we have an AI generated show about nothing, and this is even more nothing than Seinfeld was. But it's funny to hear like the MIDI created like I guess music for like the establishing shots. It's like bow 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 bow. And you're like, oh, okay, it's close enough. Like, I get what they're going for here. Do you remember when they used to, quote-unquote, Swede movie trailers when they came out? The low-cost movie trailer things?
Oh, yeah. Sweded. I think that's kind of what they... Yeah, there was like a whole movie about it. I think, who was in it? I forgot who was in it, but I watched it.
But this feels like that now. You can just do it with ChatGPT, but... Anyway, I will link that in here because it is wild though to see that kind of stuff kind of going on. But
the wild world of animation and AI clashes, that's for sure.
AI is taking over all of our Chinese air balloons flying over the world. All right, Mike. Well, that's the episode for this week. We got it done. Next week is the Super Bowl. We used to do 2 episodes for the Super Bowl. I don't feel a reason.
Well, it's different. You're hosting a whole Super Bowl party this year, so stay tuned. We'll definitely be talking about the fanfare that surrounds this big game and all the trailers that are going to be floating around. But as the way things are going, hell, all of these trailers might be online all week this week, right?
Yeah.
Big game spot, but released on a Wednesday, right? 5 days before the game. So a lot of this stuff really isn't exclusive as we thought it was anymore. No. But yeah, stay tuned. We'll be around here next week.
So if people want to see your Super Bowl snacks, your spread for this big game, Mike, where can they see that at?
Oh, Chris, if people want to see me spread, they can follow me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, people want to catch up with you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Valdan87, or Twitter, Valdan, VALDAN, while I'm still over there. Still didn't get much progression on this Mastodon thing. Really, really confused. Or they can come back and listen to the show every week if people know about this show. Super Slate, what we're doing, we'll be reviewing Ant-Man soon. We'll be talking about Super Bowl next week. We're going to get all that good stuff at.
Oh, as always, if you want to see our playoff games, we host them at superheroslate.com. That is the big arena where you can get tickets to watch our big game. I'm running out of analogies here for big game sports. Superheroslate.com. We don't charge you for parking in our giant parking lot.
Right.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to. Find podcasts like ours. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. We love it when you reached out. Super fan of the show. Jim reached out to me, said that he was most looking forward to this Superman movie coming from James Gunn.
Biased. I said, no, really? So, Jim, I hope you hear this because I'm going to tell it to you with my voice instead of just text this time.
Yeah, so we love it when fans reach out. Let us know what you're hyped for, what you're excited for. We love recommendations for Super Bowl snacks, right? So if you got anything niche that maybe most people don't know about, we'd love to hear about that. But if you want to be a super fan of the show, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week, folks.
That's right. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.